Okay, we're good. So let's go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, Christian Patriots, and welcome to Church and State, where we strive to plug you into the pew and plug you into politics. I'm your host, Caleb Collier. With me, as always, Pastor Gabe Blomgren.
How you doing, Caleb?
I am doing very well. I'm very excited for this show.
Welcome to the Thursday edition.
Yeah, Thursdays. It's going to be a great show.
We've been hitting a lot of the medical community. You had a really great guest yesterday talking about the effects of 5G on the body. Now we're going to have a doctor on today as well, talking about vaccines, which it was very weird. I just saw in a TV show yesterday. This Is Us. There's a blind character, a little blind baby who was choking, and he got brought into the pediatrician, and she goes, "I'll see you in the next month for your vaccine." You know, she and my wife and I looked at each other and we're like, "Yeah, no thanks."
Now, this is obviously an issue that's near and dear to our heart. Fans of our show know that we talk about vaccines quite a bit on Church and State, and because there's a need for it.
Yes.
There's not a lot of media that is actually paying attention to the risks that are associated with vaccines. And so that's why you and I, Gabe, and you know, both of us come from a medical background. Both of us were EMTs. Both of our wives are nurses.
Mm-hmm.
So we're involved with this, and we've seen what occurs when you pump too many of these vaccines into individuals.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, as Christians as well, we're very, very concerned about the ethics of aborted fetal tissue in these vaccines.
Yeah. We know for sure in the MMR that there are portions, and it doesn't matter how small they are. It cannot be discredited. There is fetal tissue that is in vaccines, and that is so abhorrent. I can't believe people even justify that. I can't believe as a pastor, I can't believe pastors aren't more alert and readily exposing this. So we've had Teresa Deisher, a very, very intelligent scientist who was the first person to identify the stem cells for cardiac research. She said, without a doubt, these companies use baby parts to make vaccines. So it's a disgusting thing, and we have to talk about it.
We've had Del Bigtree, we've had James Weiler. So yeah, we've had a lot of great people, and this goes to our next guest. Now, our next guest is Dr. Shannon Kroner. She has a master's degree in special education, so she's been working with a lot of these autistic children, which you and I believe is kind of the result of a lot of these vaccines. She has a doctorate in psychology, and she's the executive director and founder of forunitedsolutions.org, or For Us. So, Dr. Kroner, thank you so much for joining Church and State.
Thank you so much for having me on today.
Yes, absolutely. So the mic is yours, as it were. Go ahead and kind of introduce us to your organization and really what its mission is.
Okay. So For Us is I'm building a coalition of religious leaders of all different faiths. So we have pastors, priests, rabbis, imams. There's even a Buddhist monk. And it is international, and I'm building this coalition to protect religious freedom, but even more specifically, the religious vaccine exemption. So all of these, pastors and rabbis and such are very much on board with what is happening, and with the removal, our government is going state by state and removing the religious vaccine exemption, and children are being kicked out of school. And so all of these religious leaders are very much on board with this mission, and they understand what's happening. And so that's part of the mission of For Us. And then we've just recently written a letter in collaboration with two other organizations called Conscience Coalition and First Freedoms. And this letter is asking President Trump for an executive order or some other legal means to protect the religious vaccine exemption.
Yeah, I'm looking at that letter right here. It's dated February 3rd, 2020. This is amazing.
Thank you.
This is so awesome that you guys have taken the time. If you go to your website, it's a 6-page document, it looks like. If you go to forunitedsolutions.org, you can actually see this. The International Religious Freedom Roundtable. They've taken the time to write this out, and it's talking about the persecution of people of faith through vaccine mandates. This is awesome. I thank you so much for doing this.
Well, and
Thank you.
yeah, and for our audience, Church and State it hasn't been updated yet because we just signed it this morning. But Church and State is going to be on here as well as people that support this. It's funny to notice, Gabe, that Save Magazine is actually on here as well. Our good friend Afshin
awesome.
Yackton.
Yeah.
So yeah,
He's at Save Magazine is actually part of the For Us Coalition.
Great.
Excellent. Okay, well he's a good friend of ours that lives in the same city that we do. But going through this document, I mean, as Gabe said, it's very thorough, 6 pages, and you're pointing out some great examples. You're pointing out what occurred in Samoa, where they mandated every man, woman, and child to have the MMR, which, as Gabe just said, we confirmed has aborted fetal tissue in it. And you also point out the fact that the majority of the Samoa's population is Christian, and 20% being Catholic. So as Christians and Catholics, they're going to be opposed to having aborted fetal tissue pumped into their bodies.
Right.
Exactly.
And then you point out the unfairness of the fact that the measles rubella was said to have harm, and Islamic law didn't allow porcupine, presence or
pig.
Excuse me. I'm reading it wrong. Pig, okay, contamination, which this is against their religion. So what about us?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, in Indonesia, they were able, in 2018, they had a fatwa that was issued that allowed the Muslims in Indonesia to opt out of live virus vaccines because they're made with gelatin that's derived from pigs.
Yeah.
But here in America, we can't do that. In these states where I'm in California, we lost our religious vaccine exemption, and so the Muslim community can't opt out of live virus vaccines, can't opt out of any vaccine unless they, don't want to go to school. And I'll tell you this, so when this letter was presented, it was presented at the International Religious Freedom Roundtable in front of Ambassador Sam Brownback, which he has been appointed by President Trump to oversee the international religious freedom, what's going on in the world. And when this was presented, when I presented that there just a few weeks ago, we started getting signatures. At that moment, it went live online, and we already have over 30,000 signatures, and it's growing fast. And the last day to sign will be March 4th, and I'd like to hit around 100,000. So we really need all of your listeners to sign this document.
Okay, so take us to, so what I'm seeing is form.jotform.com. Is that how we find it?
Yeah, you can find it on the homepage.
It's right there at the homepage. It'll say, hey, click on the link below to sign. This website is really well built, I have to say. If you just go to forunitedsolutions.org, you will find a link to sign this document. So you'd have to be, no offense, anybody out there, you would be inept if you can't find it. But the link, you're right, Caleb, it's going to be form.jotforum.com. But touch the hyperlink, click on that, and sign this.
Yeah, our audience, you've got to get involved here. I love this tactic of getting everybody in this fight, because that's the only way we're going to be successful.
Yeah.
This is
Definitely.
something that we've done ourselves as a church in combating Planned Parenthood. We are standing with people of different faith, so long as they believe in the sanctity of life.
Yes.
This applies to the vaccine issue as well. Get everybody involved and iron out the differences later. Let's first attack the greater evil that is mandated vaccines.
Definitely. Power in numbers.
Absolutely. All right. So the other thing that I really liked about this form is you're pointing out some of the quotes that President Trump actually has.
Yes.
I think that's a wonderful tactic, because it makes him pay attention. Oh, I did say that. So perhaps these people are right. Maybe I should be looking at removing these mandates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been very much. President Trump is very much on, I will say, the side of protecting children, protecting education. He recently passed some kind of a bill or an executive order or something that he wants children to be able to go to whatever school that they want to go to. So he's very much for, education. He's very much for protecting the, so that there's no abortions. And
he's very keen. Have you noticed, Shannon? He's very keen on religious liberty. Like
yes.
He's in our. A lot of people debate: is he a Christian? Is he not? Well, as a pastor, he is making way more of a fight for Christianity than Barack Obama, frankly, than George Bush Jr., George Bush Sr. ever made. And so that is so apparent, whether he's ethical, has had affairs, touched private parts of other people. I know this for sure. He's protecting religious liberty for Christians. So, man, I applaud your efforts and I see Kevin Barry is one of the signatures here on this document. We love Kevin. He's been on our show.
Kevin is one of the authors. Kevin's one of the authors of this with me. So his organization is First Freedom. So he and I have worked on this document together.
Well, I applaud that. This is so genius because we have a window right now with President Trump. You're 100% right.
Exactly. That's exactly. And I actually attended the National Prayer Breakfast 2 weeks ago.
I'm so jealous.
and heard him talk about, religious liberties and what his plans to protect religious
I heard Nancy
freedom.
Pelosi was there, and you could see the inference of trash talk that he was inferring towards her. Was she squirming? Did you get to see any of that, or?
The tension, you could cut the tension with a knife between them. That for sure. She was sitting on one end of the stage, and he was on the other side, and they didn't communicate at all. But it was interesting to see.
I thought she would melt, or a lightning bolt was going to hit her at any point. So.
It was an interesting week to be in Washington, D.C., because there was the acquittal, and then there was also the State of the Union, and then the National Prayer Breakfast. So lots going on.
I'm actually curious because you said that you're out of L.A., and
yes.
I'm also a former Californian. Well, you're a current Californian. But
we were both born there.
Yeah, you were born there as well.
Sad, man. I was born in Sacramento. Where were you born?
I was born in the Bay Area, Oakland. But with your ideology and your beliefs here, it must be kind of hard, especially in LA. Do you have to hide this from people, or are you pretty open about this?
For one, I've been an activist since 2015 when California took away our rights to opt out of, they took away our religious freedom and they mandated vaccines in 2015 with SB 277. So that kind of fired up the activist in me. So I'm very vocal about this. I try and keep my children out of it, but I personally am very much like, will say my piece. And I've held rallies before. Just last year, I organized a rally. We have Congressman Adam Schiff out here, and he censored. So he censored, he asked for censorship of Facebook and YouTube and Amazon in regards to vaccine stuff. He wanted all the vaccine truth to be censored from those websites. And when he did that, then I organized a rally. He was speaking at a temple in Beverly Hills, and I organized a rally right across the street from it called "We Will Not Be Censored." Because, so I'm very vocal. I'm very much, I speak my mind, and, if people don't like it, that's up to them if they want to know what's really going on or not. So.
No, it's good for you. I applaud that, and we need to recognize as individuals that it's not a Republican versus Democrat.
Right.
It's a liberty versus tyranny.
Oh yeah.
And so
there's Democrats who are on our side.
Absolutely.
People cross the aisle all the time.
Is a great example of that.
Dell himself has admitted he used to definitely lean left. He's a conservative very much, but yeah, he comes from a long line of Kennedy-esque Democrats, and we have Democrats who are definitely on this side of the aisle.
I'll tell you myself, I was a Democrat my whole life, always voted Democrat. And then in 2015, when I was meeting with all these when I was meeting with the legislators, and they didn't want to hear anything that we had to say on the issue, that's when I dropped the party. So.
And that's a very common tale anymore. You're seeing these.
There's a lot of people.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party is losing people.
You're
by
seeing
the
hashtag
second.
walk away.
Oh yeah,
because individuals in like on that the left spectrum, you're seeing people that GMOs and 5G and vaccines that are coming to their legislators, the people that they appoint, that they elect to represent them.
Yeah.
And then they want nothing to do with them. They have this elitist mentality.
And then they see the nonsense of freaking out about a straw, but yet we have plastic water bottles everywhere. The double standards. It's just like, come on. I got a question for you. Kevin Barry, it hit home for him. He's got a son who's affected, potentially vaccine damaged, and it hit home for him. How, obviously you're passionate about what you do. How did you get into the fight? Because I've talked to Del Bigtree about it, and he's explained his story. I think it's powerful when we connect that background story. And is there anything that got you kind of like fired up about this?
Oh yeah. So I have a really interesting background to how I got into this. For one, I was working with kids who have autism and disabilities. And so every time I would meet with a new client and I would get their history, it was the same story over and over again. They would always say, my child was fine for the first year or two. And then after a series of vaccines, something changed, like the light went off inside, the spark went away.
Yeah.
And so I heard that story over and over again, which is what made me start to look into vaccines. I never realized that it was just kind of across the board, all vaccines have serious side effects and can potentially be really dangerous. So when I got pregnant for the first time, it was in 2009 during the swine flu. Swine flu was like on every news channel. So when I got pregnant, I went to a doctor and he was saying to me, you really need to get the swine flu shot and the flu shot.
Right.
And was kind of, pressuring me into it. And I thought that I was using like my common sense and said, I don't want to do the swine flu shot because it's so new and, I don't want to do something that hasn't really been tested. And then the doctor said, well, we have the flu shot and it's preservative free. So in my mind, I thought, okay, well, preservative free meant that it was safe. Mm-hmm. And so I got the flu shot. And then within about 24 hours, just like a day and a half, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was only 12 weeks pregnant, profusely leaking amniotic fluid. Oh, and I went to the ER. And when I went to the ER, they told me that the pregnancy was over. And then I went to my OBGYN the next morning and he said to me, he goes, well, we have good news and bad news. There's still a really strong heartbeat, but you've lost 95% of your amniotic fluid.
Oh my gosh.
And so he had said to me, really, there is no other option. You probably should end the pregnancy. And so then I couldn't. I just, for myself, I could not stop a heartbeat. Oh. So I went to another doctor who told me the exact same thing. And I went to another doctor who told me the exact same thing. There were no solutions. Nobody gave me any kind of solution. It was just, you really need to end the pregnancy because this is only like a 12-week-old fetus and the baby's not going to, grow normally or breathe normally and it's going to be disfigured and stuff. And so I went home, I put myself on bed rest and I did the research on how to regenerate amniotic fluid.
Wow.
Not a single doctor told me that was even possible, yet our body makes amniotic fluid. Obviously, it comes from within. And so I put myself on bed rest. I drank a lot of water because the more hydrated you are, the more amniotic fluid your body will make. And by week 20, my amniotic fluid was back to 100%. And
wow.
The baby was doing just fine. Every doctor I went to was just like, oh my God, this is a miracle. We've never seen this before. And I was like, well, maybe you've never seen it before because you encouraged, ending a pregnancy if there's a complication. So my son, he was born, full term. The only real issue that we had was when I lost so much amniotic fluid, my uterus collapsed on him. So it dislocated his knee. And so he grew inside of me with a dislocated knee. So at 8 weeks old, he needed to have reconstructive knee surgery. But today he's, a 9.5-year-old boy who's super smart. He's an honors student. He's amazing, best personality, super funny, it's just a great kid.
Praise
So
God.
yeah, that's my crazy
That is a
vaccine injury
story.
story.
No, that is such an encouraging story for our
I'm used to
audience.
bad endings, man. I just pretty much just always expect a bad ending. And it's nice to hear that. And I'm so glad that you had a resilient spirit. And I think it's those 3 doctors. God had you go to 3 doctors so that he would be able to say, you see, you see, you see,
Oh,
I
let me tell you,
told
it
you
was
so.
more. I actually went for the total was six
Wow.
different doctors that I
That's
went
interesting. That's interesting.
Well, and this just
to.
goes to
Yeah.
prove so often you hear from doctors that we've
There's no hope.
detected this abnormality.
There's an abnormality.
Yes, and so we should probably end the pregnancy.
This is going to be
And-
disfigured child.
Yeah, and many of them are ended just like that. Or like I believe it was Iceland who said that they had gotten rid of all Down syndrome babies, that they'd cured it. Well, the cure was execution of the babies if they
Right.
detected it. So it's just incredible
Wow.
to see an example of, science said that your baby was going to be disfigured. But
Right.
you held on and you did your own research and you knew your own body. And through that, you were blessed with a beautiful boy.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a really difficult time in my life, but it was also the most the most I've ever spoken to God and listened to my body and really kind of try to figure out what's going on. And it was a great decision that I made. So
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, so going back to your organization, what are some of the, other than just building a coalition of different faiths in order to combat the vaccine mandates,
yeah.
are you also engaged in research?
So I personally am not doing any kind of scientific research. With the website though, one of the things that a really kind of neat feature that we have on there so that others can learn and share is there's a tab on the website called Clergy Letters. And what I've done is I'm collecting different letters from different religious leaders so that people can, see different perspectives
Is that
on
under the testimonials or?
I think it's under religious leaders, isn't it?
it's actually, so there's a tab of religious leaders, and then
Okay.
that's all the different religious leaders. But then there's another tab called Clergy Letters.
Okay.
And so there are letters from rabbis and pastors and priests, and there's, doctor letters and stuff, where people can read them and then print them out and then hand them to their own, religious leaders and organizations. So, I encourage people to print out these letters and show them to their own pastors or their own rabbis and, start a conversation.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now. So it's under the More tab. You click on More, and it's the first thing that comes up. And yeah, there's all of these PDFs that you can just print out. You can download them right away. And yeah, it's from pastors, it's from rabbis, whatever your faith is, you can download this, print it out, and like you just said, take it to your church leader and let them know, hey, look at this letter. This is from people from our own faith, and perhaps you could get involved, Pastor, because that's the thing. If all of the churches, if all of the church leadership got involved, we'd turn this thing around immediately.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that's another thing, for us, what I'm trying to do is build the coalition so that when these bills come out in, state by state, then we will have religious leaders in that state or neighboring states so that they can go there and testify at the hearings and share the religious perspective.
That's good, because Gabe and I have both been over to Olympia, our state capital in Washington, when they've been attacking religious freedom. And yeah, it's amazing. We're trying to bring in people to speak on our behalf. And then on the other side, you seeing Big Pharma bringing in tons of people. They got so much money. They're able to line the pockets of these politicians. And so it's encouraging to have a one-stop solution for our side to actually bring in speakers that are eloquent, that are able to articulate our concerns.
Exactly. And I'll tell you, with the signatures that we've been gathering so far on this initiative letter, oh my gosh, the list of religious leaders that we have, there are hundreds of different, maybe even that. I'm sure there's probably about thousands of like religious leaders, of pastors, rabbis, imams. We have an archbishop, we have a bishop who signed, and then not only that, there's all these doctors that are signing. We've got MDs, PhDs,
Yeah.
a ton of nurses. There's military who have signed. Someone from the Department of Defense signed. And it's really an impressive signature list of different people who are really concerned about this issue, and they want to protect religious liberty, want to protect our religious freedom.
I feel like there's a tipping point that we've reached, and we're starting to gain ground. And one of the signals of that is they're using rhetoric that we're going to cause a mass event, which is interesting that we have the coronavirus going on right now simultaneously. So they're using fear tactics because we're gaining ground.
Exactly. Always. A lot of when people who are very, pro-vax, that you're going to bring back polio, or,
right.
We have to get the flu shot or whatever. It's all based in fear.
Yeah.
That's all it is based in fear and what the media has told them to be scared of.
No, you're absolutely right. I'm very encouraged to hear that you've got members of the military and somebody from the DOD that has signed this as well. Being a former Marine, I remember, down in California,
inject you with everything.
They did. I was a test dummy.
It's an experiment on our military, unfortunately, because military cannot opt out of vaccinations, or they'll lose their jobs.
We were both EMTs, and we were forced as EMTs to get vaccinations.
There as well. But yeah, the fear in the military, once again, using those fear tactics, they told me if I declined the anthrax vaccine, for example, I would be dishonorably discharged. Now that's something that stays with you for your whole life.
Yeah, it's an experiment on our military, and it's very sad because these are the people who are protecting our country and defending us, and then we're experimenting on them.
Yeah, extremely sad. So, Dr. Kroner, we have about 45 seconds here left. Why don't you hit us with any closing statements, and make sure to plug your website as well.
Okay, so all of your listeners, please go to www.united-solutions.org and sign the letter on the homepage. You can also donate. This is a nonprofit, so donations are tax deductible. Your donations go to me sending religious leaders and myself to these meetings, usually in Washington, D.C. So I'm constantly flying back and forth from L.A. to D.C. And we've got some really big meetings coming up in the very near future where I'm going to be having to send some pastors and rabbis to some of these meetings. So
excellent. Okay, well, we'll definitely have to have you back once again for unitedsolutions.org. Dr. Kroner, thank you so much for joining us on Church and State. All right.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Church and State is brought to you in part by Covenant Church. Always remember, the tree of liberty is most likely a birch. And with that, Church and State is out.
God bless.
All right.